Hey everybody, Payments Professor here. Now, we're going through the Losses at Light Speed webinar. I've broken it into chunks, into segments for you to be able to get an idea of the things that were covered in this. Now, I talk a lot about faster payments, risk, and fraud, and what kind of losses we're going to see. And what I've been doing in this particular section is looking at what's happened over in the UK, where they've had faster payments for over a decade now. In this particular segment, we're going to look at what's called the code, the voluntary code that's in place in the UK. You know, I don't want to spoil it anymore for you. Check this out. All right, next we have what's called cracking the code. This is some scary, crazy stuff. This is where we are going to go a little bit into the twilight zone of payments. Now, I do have to tell you, this is not happening in the US, but anything's possible. Cracking the code is something that happened or is happening in the UK only. This UK only, but I just want you to be aware, because when it comes to banking regulations, this is what I'm afraid of happens if we get too much. There needs to be a balance. Don't get me wrong, there needs to be banking regulation. But we look at cracking the code and it says, banks sign up for a voluntary code to reimburse victims of APP fraud. Say what? Wait, what is this? Okay, let's go see here. In this principles and standards of the code, and what it means is it says where both the bank involved, and they call them all banks over in the UK there, the sending and receiving banks met the standards that were expected of them, and this is important, the customer did everything that was expected of them, then the customer will be reimbursed through what they call a no blame funding solution. No blame funding solution. Wait, so if money's lost and I intentionally sent it, but I didn't realize I was being duped, you can't blame me. You're gonna have to give me my money back. How many of y'all are familiar with Reg E and have been like, I can't believe Reg E allows for that. This makes Reg E look like it's just way too strict. Moving on. The code actually requires that financial institutions raise awareness, educate their account holders, and work to identify scams before they happen. What's that mean here? I've already been, I mean, I get on the soapbox of education. Of course I'm going to. With a name like Payments Professor, yeah, it's important to me. I think it's highly important. People don't know what they don't know, so you need to educate them, make them aware that these scams can take place. But that third bullet there, the identifying APP scams before they happen, let me go ahead and tell you, and this is where you're going to want to talk to your providers. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure Jamie will be able to fill in more of what's happening in the future of faster payments that are going to be offered for you guys. But you're going to make sure you have fraud controls in there. It's written into the RTP rules. It's written in the Fed register of what's planned for FedNow, that you as a sending institution will have to have real-time monitoring for what you're sending and fraud controls. Now, all of this we're talking about here is also on the receiving side. So as things are coming in, you're going to also have to be monitoring it, because we want you to detect mules and mule accounts. More to come. They also have a provision for prevention, which requires you share the intelligence. Back to, how many of you would like to share exactly how much you had in losses? Nobody. But yet they're doing it there. When they see things are happening. And I do want to say though, I do think we do share here in the US. For example, when we see fake checks going around in a territory, I know the payment associations, organizations like Matcha, which just recently merged with Watcha, the Clearinghouse Payments Authority, ePay Resources, Niche, EPCOR, WestPay, SFE, Payments First. I don't want to forget one in case you're in that territory and they come after me, but all the payment associations, they do work to help educate and inform their members of when there's fraud taking place with checks. I know the check alerts will go out there to let you know, hey, be aware that cashier's checks from this bank are fraudulent, or from this organization. Will we see the same with faster payments? Spoiler alert, actually yes. I know with real-time payments, if you read through their rules and what they've established as far as fraud and risk alerts, yes, they will send out system-wide or channel-wide alerts when they're detecting potential fraud. So this one will be met, very important. There is criteria that will have to be met as far as effective warnings. They're saying you're going to have to put everything in plain language. It's going to have to be understood by the account holder. It's going to have to be fair, and the customer can reasonably understand. All right, I've been around banking for a long time, and I've had a challenge. I mean, I'm kind of glad that checks are going down in some ways. And I say that working for a company that does a lot of check processing. But let me just say, for how many years have you seen people be like, I have money, I still have a checking account, right? I still have checks. I can still write checks, I still have money. Well, don't they understand you can't spend money you don't have? Do any of you have those account holders? Oh, of course not. Let's keep going. So what happens with this particular code that we're talking about? And I hope it doesn't get to this in the US, but again, I mentioned Reg E earlier, right? You have heard of the CFPB? Ooh, let's not go there. Okay, banks are required to take reasonable steps to identify customers and payment authorizations that could be higher risk, that could be associated with those potential APPP scams that may be taking place, and they have to do something to be able to stop it, because in the response provision, it says that when a customer is a victim of APP, the institutions should reimburse the customer. It's called you get your money back. Somebody, that romance scam, your heart's broken, you want to send some money to somebody so they come see you, but they don't come see you, but you intentionally sent the money. You logged in and you said, hey, here's the money for that plane ticket, come see me, and they don't, and you go report it, you'll get your money back in this situation. You click on that email that says, hey, you're entitled to more money. Just send the money to this location. And you send the money to that. In this particular code, you'll get the money back. In fact, the banks in the UK created a fund for this, a fund with a few $100 million in it, like 350 million the last time I checked, which is like a year ago. A $350 million fund that they shared for these losses to be able to take place. Wow. I'm going to get off the code and get on to the US here specifically in just a second. Something else though, they do say, just to take it down a small little bitty notch, they do say that if the customer effectively ignores all the warnings, that they will be held responsible, especially if they're grossly negligent. There's only one catch. They don't define what grossly negligent is. Huh? I can't put that one together, but you know what I can do? I can give you another Payments Professor Pop Quiz. So here we go. It is time for the Pop Quiz. And I told you, spoiler, this question was coming. How is something similar to the code, how would it be enforced in the US? Would it be enforced by the FDIC for community banks to follow? Would it be enforced by the NCUA for credit unions to follow and adhere to, of course? Or would it be something like the FFIEC for all financial institutions to follow and apply to all their policies and standards and all that good stuff? Or is it D? It does not apply in the US. Okay, I love this question because the answer is actually D. It does not apply in the US. I want to make that very clear. I'm letting you know, I'm showing you controls that you can put in place. I'm letting you be aware of their fraud got that kind of crazy that their government, their regulatory bodies went to this extent to be able to control it. I'm letting you know it happened in many other countries as well. And if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. So will it happen here in the US? I'm gonna go out on a limb and make a wild prediction of yes. So just be aware of that, be careful of it. But as of today, not yet, I'm gonna say, we don't have a code that makes us have to follow any of that, not yet. When we see more adoption, which is happening rather quickly, COVID has truly accelerated this, but when we see more adoption of faster payments, and I'm saying when we see that fraud rise, then we will most likely then see, and I bet it will actually be FFIEC, and that's because FDIC, NCUA, FRB, all kinds of other three-letter acronyms, they are all involved in the FFIEC. They will then put out standards that we will have to adhere to and follow. Very similar to what I see in that code right now is what I expect.
So what do you think about that code? Kind of crazy, right? I don't know that we'll ever see anything like that in the US, but you never know. Things change, things happen. I really thought the adoption of faster payments would be actually a little faster than it has been pre-COVID, but post-COVID, wow, we're definitely see it take off. So anything's possible. If you want to see what happens in the next segment, make sure that you're following the Payments Professor on YouTube, where I'm putting all of these videos out there. And if you want to be able to have a topic of something created on the Payments Professor YouTube channel or on the paymentsprofessor.com website, where we have tons of material when it comes to faster payments, courses on RTP and FedNow, you can always email me, kevin@paymentsprofessor.com. Any questions, any comments, love to hear from you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Class dismissed.